So many of you may not know this, but I actually came up with the idea with Madness to start Milk and Cookies Total War during Fish Sandwich Patrol's YouTube tournament, a classic battle tournament called March Madness. And it was a classic battle tournament for Shogun 2 in which only two factions were allowed, the Mori and the Hojo. And it's in that tournament that I ended up winning that I finally decided that I wanted to become a Total War commentator and start posting regular content on YouTube. But in that tournament, and I assume many of you probably have not seen videos from it, but the metagame in that tournament was basically revolved around Yari Ashigaru. Now, there were a bunch of games and a bunch of players, and many of them had very different tactics, but Sir Tree of Arbor, who I'm actually playing in this game, is a friend of mine, and in that tournament, he played me in the third or fourth round in the winner's bracket and beat me and sent me to losers with a Yari Ashigaru spear wall. Basically, the idea behind it is that you give 6 or 7 chevrons, maybe 8 or 9 chevrons, to a Yari Ashigaru unit. And the way that chevrons work in Classic Battle on Shogun 2 is that the cost increase for each chevron is based on a percentage of the total cost of the unit. So if you give a chevron to a katana hero, that's not a cost-effective upgrade at all, because it's a very expensive unit, and that means that the chevron itself will be very expensive and the stat gain won't be that high. For Yari Ashigaru, on the other hand, you get the same stat gain, but a much smaller cost for the chevron, which means that if you give 6 or 7 chevrons to a Yari Ashigaru, they then become like 670, 700 koku, but have basically doubled in their effectiveness as well. So that was kind of the meta, and Sir Tree of Arbor really kind of destroyed me in our first matchup with this Yari Ashigaru spear wall. Now, this was actually relatively early in my playing days on Total War, but I realized quickly that attacking a Yari Ashigaru spear wall head-on is never the way to go about things, and that's because they behave very much like pikes in Rome 2. In Rome 2, you realize that attacking a Phalanx head-on is just not a very good idea. It hurts. You're going to lose a lot of men for basically no reason. Way to beat Yari Ashigaru spear wall is always to flank and try to hit from as many sides as possible. So in this game, I decided to kind of bring a Yari Ashigaru spear wall with the Takeda with a very cav-heavy core behind it. I brought 2 Great Guard, Kiyomasa's Katana cav, some Yari cav, and for those who have not played Classic on Shogun 2, each clan has a special bonus that they receive. And for the Takeda, it's the cavalry. All my cavalry is better than the typical cavalry for other feudal Japan clans. So this battle is going to start out kind of strangely, and I know what Sir Tree of Arbor was trying to do. I understand it, but I think his execution of it was pretty off, honestly. He's going to send in Yari Cav, basically unsupported, to tie down my Yari Ashigaru. And Yari Ashigaru are spears. They kill cavalry very, very quickly. What he's trying to do here, and I'll pause it just for a second, is what he wants to do is have this very rush-heavy army. It has no dachis up front, and by the way, the Date, which is the clan he's playing, focus on bringing no dachis. Their no dachis are better than other no dachi units in the game. What he wants to do is tie down my Yari Ashigaru before they can get into spear wall, and then follow up with a no-dachi charge. If he ties down my Yari Ashigaru before they get in spear wall, they will not be effective. Their killing power comes from the fact that they are in spear wall. They're much like the Phalanx that way. If they aren't in spear wall, they don't have very much killing power. So if he can tie them down, then he can follow up with a charge from the no-dachis, and I won't be able to fight very effectively, considering that my infantry corps is made up of these guys. His timing is very off, though. If we look at how far away his main line is from the engagement, it's very far. They're not even close to getting up to me right now. So, considering how fast that Yari Cav died, probably about 5-10 seconds before the unit routed off the field, not very good. And he's going to do it to 2 or 3 more units before this engagement is over. He's going to send them unsupported into Yari Ashigaru, and they will die very, very quickly. Because like I said, Yari Ashigaru, especially Chevron Yari Ashigaru, a lot of killing power versus cavalry. It was a good idea. I think the execution left a lot to be desired. And he's even going to do it to his Great Guard. after I've already formed into spear wall. I believe I get into spear wall right here. Yep, you can see me dropping the spears right now. He's going to lose a lot of guys off that charge. I think he's going to end up losing about 15 before he has to pull out. So he's lost 3 cav units for nothing, and the infantry engagement hasn't even started yet. But here they come now. The Nodachi charge is going to come into my Yari Ashigaru in spear wall. Quite the cinematic view right there. And that's going to be a relatively even fight. I do think that Chevron, 6 or 7 Chevron Yari Ashigaru, can definitely beat Nodachis from the front. Considering how many melee units he has, though, I think he needed to focus a lot more on flanking and not really engaging from the front. Like I've said, lots of killing power from the front, but they rout very quickly because they have very low morale. Even with the upgrades, only 9 morale. So you hit them on the flank or the rear, they rout very, very quickly. So I don't think he had to engage from the front here. And considering the fact that he was the Yari Ashigaru master of that tournament, and like it's really what he likes bringing, he loves the spear wall builds, I thought it was an interesting decision from him to attack a spear wall from the front. But considering the cavalry advantage that I have now, I'm going to really be able to dictate the pace of this game. He's going to send his Great Guard in here, but I'll be able to tie them down with some Naginata Warrior Monks. And all across the line, I think my Yari Ashigaru spear wall is holding pretty well. And he really hasn't been able to flank at all. These Naginata Samurai I think would have been actually a really good unit maybe to send in the front into the spear wall because they have very high armor at 9 armor, which is much higher than Nodachis, and I think they could have maybe handled themselves much better. And then flank with a Nodachi. A rear charge from a Nodachi is going to win you an infantry engagement 90% of the time. So Great Guard charge into his general here. It's going to take them down to about half strength just in one charge. And all across the line I think I'm doing pretty well here. I was pretty slow on my cav micro, to be honest, but a couple of my units have gotten into really threatening positions, and if I can continue to rear charge and hammer and anvil here, I should be able to win this infantry fight. Yari Ashigaru is starting to falter a little bit, and these guys are going to end up routing. But with all the cav I have left on the field and the surrounds I'm getting off, this is looking pretty good for me. So what I think he could have done better at this point is definitely focus very heavily on flanking, considering that he had, I think, about 12 melee units, and it was very rush-centric. And all the Naginatas that he had as well, I think he could have really hit me from multiple angles pretty easily. He definitely had enough spears and Naginata to protect himself against all my cavalry. I think he could have negated my cavalry very easily if he'd played a little bit differently. But to be completely fair, Surtree has not been playing Total War very much. He was pretty disgruntled at Rome 2's release, and I can't really blame him on that. So he hasn't been playing a whole lot, and I think he just wanted to get some quick games in with me. So again, I want to thank him very much for playing with me. I thought we actually played a couple games, and I might show the other replay as well. And that was a Wasuji versus Iko Iki classic battle, and that one was kind of interesting as well. But I thought it was an overall pretty good battle, and cinematic-wise, again, I think it's hard to beat Shogun 2. I think it's the most cinematic of all Total War games in the franchise. So, thinking about the matchup between Takeda and Date, I honestly do think that Takeda is a better clan. When you think of the Nodachi and the Date, Nodachi is a very niche kind of unit. Like, it can certainly be utilized effectively as a core, especially in Avatar Conquest where you can upgrade them more. But in Classic Battle, I think they're kind of a niche unit. I think you don't want to make them your core because they have such low defense that they really don't have any staying power. And if you don't have a lot of cavalry to back them up or a lot of matchlock support, it makes it very hard to win with them because by themselves they can't really carry the day unless you're getting really good flanking charges off. A rear charge with a Nodachi 100% of the time will win you the infantry fight, but it's also hard to flank with them because a cav unit, just one cav unit, can do a lot of damage to them because they have such low armor. So when we look at the Date, they just have better Nodachis. But we look at the Takeda, all of their cavalry across the board is better. So definitely think that Takeda is a better clan. But the nice thing about Classic Battle is that it's honestly very, very balanced. It's extremely balanced because all the clans are basically the same thing, and it's really how you allocate your chevrons and your army builds. That is what matters. It's not about the faction at all, really. Like, again, I say the Takeda have a little bit of an advantage over the Date because they have all their cav is better, but it's a very, very marginal difference that usually is not going to change the battle too much because it's much more about micromanagement and army compositions than anything else. In fact, I'd honestly have to say that Shogun 2 Classic Battles are the most balanced in the series, because there really is no difference between Sengoku Jidai clans. There's just very small stat changes between maybe the Wasuji have better Nagayana Warrior Monks, Takeda have better Cav, but again, at the end of the day, that impact isn't always felt in a battle. What else? My Yari Ashigaru did very, very well. Again, he attacked from the front. Not the best idea against Yari Ashigaru. And I brought 2 Naginata Warrior Monk units. They did pretty well for me. I think it's always good to bring at least 1 Naginata Warrior Monk. I think Warcry can absolutely change the course of a battle. I think, for those who don't know, Warcry, it gives a morale penalty. It's a lot like the legendary Mempo Mask, except it's a one-time use ability instead of a constant aura. And it can definitely cause a chain route going if you get a couple of those off at the same time. So I like to use Naginata Warrior Monks kind of when they aren't my core, which I think they can be utilized effectively as a core. I like to bring like maybe 1 or 2 and use those as a flanking force, because if you get a rear charge off of them and then pop Warcry, it's an instant route for most units. So very, very good unit, and if I do end up casting the Wasuji Iko Iki game, you'll get to see those guys in action as well. Great Guard did very well. Kiyomasa Katana Cav did very well as well. And overall, I think my units were pretty cost effective. His Nodachi's got a lot of kills, but remember they are on Yari Ashigaru, which have more men in a unit and cost less than a typical samurai unit, so take that for what it's worth. And I think if he hadn't thrown his cavalry away the way he did, I think he could have very easily won that battle. Because he had more than enough cav to deal with mine. He had 2 Great Guard as well, 3 Yari cav. He had more than enough cav to fight me in a cav battle. He just kind of threw them away on spears, which was a good idea. He just didn't execute. So, hope you guys enjoyed it. We'll probably cast the Wasuji Iko Iki game next, and I will talk to you all later. See ya.